Hey there, Nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheesecake, and we want to welcome you to another episode of Way of the Underhive. This series is dedicated to helping brand new players to Necromunda build their starting rosters and learn more about the game mechanics of their favorite gangs. And on this episode, we will discuss playing a House Ko'Iron Outcast gang in your campaigns of Necromunda Ashwaste. We will discuss the gang's strengths and weaknesses, their individual fighters, their playstyle, and provide critical information that you can use in your campaign. And at the same time, we will also include a 1400 credit starting roster that you can use in order to build your very first House Ko'Iron Outcast gang and bring out flames and piety out to the ashways of Necromunda. So with that being said, let's get this video started by talking about the strengths and weaknesses of playing a Noble House Delegation gang. Alright, so let's talk about the strengths of playing a Delegation Outcast gang. So potentially it's one of the most powerful starting gangs that you can actually have in a campaign, and the reason why is because the fighters that make up your delegations. Regardless if you're playing Criminal, Merchant, or Noble House delegations, they usually all start off with excellent equipment and skills right from the start. In some cases they have some really good stats, and they have some very powerful special rules that can make them really advantageous and very competitive in an Ashways campaign. At the same time, you can also take advantage of weird disciplines now because the Book of the Outcast release those weird disciplines. You can even customize your fighters even further. And in addition to adding vehicles with heavier weapon options and different boons and weapon gears from those vehicles, could also give your delegation gang a huge advantage out in the ashways of Necromunda. And these are some of the advantages and strengths of actually playing a delegation outcast gang. Alright, so perhaps the biggest weakness of actually playing a delegation gang that's an outcast gang is that you cannot take any alliances whatsoever. If you decide to use the delegation as the core of your gang, no alliances are available to you. So for example, if you're a merchant guild delegation gang, you can't take criminal alliances or noble house alliances, and vice versa for all the other ones as well. So that's one of the biggest weaknesses of playing a delegation gang. If you really like using alliances to help your gang out, this might not be the one for you. However though, like I said before in the strengths, it does give you a leg up in the actual beginning of a campaign because you have better fighters, better equipment, and better skills. Now, one of the weaknesses of this game, of course, is that if you decide to play WYSIWYG, which is an acronym for what you see is what you get type of gangs, this can be quite pricey in my opinion. And the reason why is because, for example, if you were to play a Nauticon siphoning delegation, for example, as the core of your gang, and you want to buy the Forge World miniatures in order to fill that gang, those Forge World miniatures can be quite expensive. So because of that, I would suggest looking for cheaper alternatives or convert your own in most cases. A lot of these delegations have not been manufactured yet, so you could possibly do that, but that's just something you might want to take into account. Me, of course, I would never actually do that. I would just convert my own or find alternate ways to get cheaper miniatures, and that's the thing I would keep in mind when I would be playing a delegation gang. At the same time, these gangs are also very expensive to field in terms of credits. These delegations, like I said, have a lot of skills, a lot of weapons, better stats, and you're going to pay for those. For example, I think the cheapest of the delegations starts off at like 540 credits, I believe. So because of that, it's going to be very, very expensive for you to fill these fighters, but that's the way it goes. And lastly, probably the biggest weakness of actually playing an outcast delegation gang is that you do have to beware of the balanced bandwagon. A lot of balanced bandwagon types will scream overpowered or game breaking or unfair and so on and so forth. But of course, once again, just ignore those immaturity of those players, drink the salt of their tears, and just use that to power yourself in destroying your enemies. So these are some of the strengths and weaknesses involved in playing a delegation gang. Alright, so when it comes to delegation gangs, once again, you get to pick from merchant guilds, criminal syndicates, or noble houses, and use those delegations you get from those alliances to form the core of your gang. Leaders also get archetypes and affiliations depending on what delegation you choose. Also, champions also get archetypes as well, so that allows for a lot of customization for your different members of your delegations depending on the affiliations and the archetypes that you choose. Now, once again, remember, archetypes depend on what kind of primary and secondary skills your champions and your leaders receive, while affiliations usually determine what kind of weapons and equipment you can get from the starting list, if not from the trading post as well. At the same time, the nice thing about these delegations is that the members of those delegations gain experience and they can purchase weapons and equipment over time, just like any other gang. So that part is really, really cool. And once again, I have to make sure I stress this a lot. If you decide to take a delegation outcast gang, you cannot make any alliances whatsoever in the future. So just be aware when that actually happens and keep that in mind. So when it comes to the actual noble houses of Necromunda and your delegation gangs, you actually have 6 different delegations you can actually choose from to form the very core of your gang. And those delegations are the House Catalyst Carnival, that's your first option, the House Ulanti Court Advisors, House Graham Military Attaché, House Ko'Iron Ministerium Delegation, House Ranlo Auditing Conclave, or the House Tai Omioto Coven. So all 6 of the noble houses are available for delegations to use for the core for your noble outcast gang, and pretty much it just kind of depends on what you want to use and the various things you want to play and how you want to create the aesthetic for your outcast noble gang. So that being said, now that we're done talking about the delegations you can choose from, let's go ahead and talk about the specific core of your gang for the house that you choose on the next slide. Alright, so let's talk about the House Ko'Iron Ministerium Delegation, which is the core of your gang. It's going to cost you 500 credits in order to put this group together. So my question to you is, do you want to play Redemptionists without paying for Redemptionists? Then the House Delegation is for you. This is an amazing close combat oriented core to your gang with a leader as well as 2 gangers. Now, you also get access to Eviscerators for 90 credits, which is a combination of a chainsword as well as a flamer. So if you want to bring pain to your enemies with flamers as well as chain swords, this is the weapon for you, and you could be just like the Redemptionists without having to pay Redemptionist costs. Now, the nice thing about these Eviscerators, they have a 1-inch range with +1 to your strength and -1 AP, 1 damage. They have Sever, Shred, as well as Versatile traits, which is going to be great for you to use against your enemies, especially if you want to use the ride-by rules because it doesn't have Unwieldy next to it. At the same time, you also have a Flamer attached to this thing with Strength 3, -1 AP, 1 damage. So it's 2 weapons combined in 1, which is all kinds of awesome. At the same time, you also have access to light Carapace armor, master crafted bolt pistols, shock staves, and refractor fields, which are great for your gang to use. And when you combine that with the low cost of your outcasts, it's going to be really good to pair them up with some really powerful weapons as well. Not to mention, all the fighters in the Ministerium Delegation come with Devotional Frenzy, which can boost your weapon skill, cool, leadership, and willpower by D3. Now, it does come with a 1 damage hit, which could hurt, but if you're playing these guys like the Kamikaze Redemptionist types that they are, it really doesn't matter. Because the delegation is so expensive, however, this will be one of the smallest gangs in the Noble House's outcast gangs, and just because right off the bat, 500 credits is going directly to the core of your gang. So now that we're done talking about the Ko'Iron Ministerium Delegation, let's talk about the individual fighters by starting off with the Prime Materis. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the Prime Materis real quick. She's going to cost you 300 credits, and she's going to be the leader of your gang as well. For her stats, she has a 5-inch movement allowance, as well as 4 weapon skill, 3 ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness, 2 wounds, 4 initiative, 2 attacks. She's got 5 leadership, 6 cool, 6 willpower, as well as 7 intelligence. Now, when it comes to your Prime Materis, oddly enough, being a Wyrd archetype would not be a bad pick for this fighter. With a 6+ willpower, they have a 72% chance of triggering their powers due to that 6 of willpower. And the reason why is also really good to give these guys is because of Devotional Frenzy on this fighter, and your 2 Frateris Bodyguards will also help you out in order to be a better fighter. You got really good combat stats to start off with, so having this Wyrd archetype could really help you. And the way I would recommend using this Wyrd archetype would be the Biomancy skill, power discipline. And the reason why is because when you make a recovery test, you get to roll an extra injury dice and you can choose one to discard, so that's going to be extremely helpful for you as well. At the same time, I also suggest that you take the Stop Bleeding power, and the reason why is because of that Devotional Frenzy. If you take that 1 damage hit, and if you roll a flesh wound, you can use this power. It can either use it on yourself or use it up to 18 inches away. It can take away all flesh wounds off your fighters, so that way you can keep on spamming the Devotional Frenzy and cause all kinds of problems for your enemy. At the same time, the Prime Materis, like I said before, is a close combat monster, both with the stats they start with, plus Devotional Frenzy, and at the same time the equipment they have. They're packing light Carapace armor, which would give them that 4-up armor save. They have a master crafted bolt pistol, which could be great for close combat, as well as short range shooting. And they have a shock stave, which is really nice as well, because you also got that versatile trait that you can use for your ride-by abilities on the Ashways. And you also come with a refractor field, which gives you a 5-up ward save as well. Now, your character does come with 2 starting skills. They come with Devotional Frenzy, which is going to be great for giving you that additional boost to your weapon skill, cool, leadership, and willpower. At the same time, you do have Overseer as well. Oddly enough, you do want to spam Overseer for most of your activations, but you Stop Bleeding for your gangers, champions, and your leaders, especially if the members of your gang start using that Devotional Frenzy power as well. At the same time, the weapons they do come with are really perfect for self-defense because really close range combat, so even if you do spam the Overseer ability and you get charged, you can still protect yourself pretty well. Alright, so let's talk about your Materis bodyguards. These guys cost 100 credits apiece, and they will be 2 of them, and 2 of them will make up the 2 of the gangers in your Outcast gang. So the Materis bodyguards come with movement 5, 4 weapon skill and ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness, 1 wound. They also have 4 plus initiative, 1 attack. They have 6 leadership, 7 cool, 6 willpower, as well as 7 intelligence. Now, when it comes to your Materis bodyguard, these guys are totally close combat oriented, and they also come with flamers on their eviscerators as well. So that makes them have additional weapons on them. Now, when it comes to the equipment, they all come with mesh armor as a base, but you have to choose what loadout you want. You could have one guy have an eviscerator and last pistol, or chainsword and last gun, or you could equip them differently if you want to. In my opinion, you should always go with the Eviscerator, and the reason why is because you can get the other weapons, the Chainsword, the Last Gun, from the Hive Scum lists, but you can't get our Eviscerators. Not to mention, with the Eviscerator combo, you actually get 3 weapons for the price of 2, because you got that larger Chainsword, plus you have a Last Pistol, and at the same time, you also have the Flamer as well, so that's going to be really helpful for you. Having that Eviscerator and that Last Pistol is going to be really great to use in close combat together. Having that Flamer to pop off that Strength 3 Template Blast, always a good thing. And at the same time, if you need to boost your weapon skill, cool, or whatever, you also have Devotional Frenzy. And if you take a flesh wound from it, no harm, no foul, because your leader can use her, Materis can use her stop bleeding ability to remove your flesh wounds. So it's a really, really good combination to do that with. So that's what I would recommend for the Materis bodyguard, is equip them both with Eviscerators with Last Pistols. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about the Underhive Outcast Champion real quick. For these gangs, these guys cost 60 credits apiece, and for their stats, they have 5-inch movement, 3 plus weapon skill, 4 plus ballistic skill. They have 3 strength, 3 toughness. They also have 2 wounds, they have 4 initiative, 1 attack. They have 6 leadership, 7 cool, 8 willpower, as well as 8 intelligence. So let's go on and talk about these guys real quick. So when it comes to the Underhive Outcast Champions, they're very versatile, and the reason why is because their stats are pretty much mediocre. Now that's both a good and a bad thing. While it might be bad because they can't excel at any one given thing, whether it's shooting or close combat, it does allow them to be able to equip a large variety of weapons and fulfill any role that you need them to fulfill within your gang as well. Now when it also comes to your guys' Underhive Outcast Champions, Archetypes of course are very, very important. But the problem with these guys though is that their archetypes are very limited for their skills, in my opinion. For example, they have 5 different archetypes they can choose from, but they only have 1 primary skill, and each of those archetypes followed by 2 secondaries. So for example, if you were to take the Brawler archetype, Brawn would be your primary with Ferocity and Leadership as your secondaries. If you were a Gunslinger archetype, Shooting would be your primary with Agility as well as Leadership as your secondaries. For a Survivor archetype, Ferocity would be your primary, followed by Combat and Leadership for your secondaries. For Mastermind, Cunning would be your primary, with Leadership and Savant as your secondaries. And of course, for Wyrd archetypes, your Psychic Disciplines would be your primary, followed by Cunning and Leadership as your secondaries. Unfortunately for the champion, there are no archetypes where combat is a primary, so that is kind of limiting on what you can do. So you won't be getting any skills really to increase your combat abilities, but better weapons and equipment choices could probably help out with that as well. Now when it comes to their equipment and weapons, they can purchase pretty much anything they want to off the trading post, so long as it's within the rarity value of 8 on the trading post. So they are kind of limited in some of their choices, but the reason why that is the case is because you can take 1 champion for every 3 Hive Scum in your gang. So for example, if you have 6 Hive Scum in your gang, you can take 2 champions. If you got 9 Hive Scum, you can get 3 champions, and etc. So that's basically where the trade-off kind of comes in. And then finally, of course, we have our Underhive Outcast Hive Scum, which is your typical ganger and juvie level fighter for your gang. These guys cost 30 credits apiece. For their stats, they have 5-inch movement, 4 plus weapon skill and ballistic skill, 3 strength and toughness. They have 1 wound, 4 plus for initiative, 1 attack. They have 8 plus for leadership, cool, willpower, and intelligence. And for their skill access, when they become a specialist, their primary is Cunning, with Ferocity as their secondary. Now, Underhive Scum, Outcast Scum, they're very mediocre, okay? But because of that, they're also very cheap to field. And even though they have very mediocre stats, they count as both gangers and juvie level fighters for your gang, and because their stats are still so mediocre, they can fulfill many different roles in your gang. You can equip them as shooters, close combat, you can use them as support, you can use them as suicide bombers, especially now that you can also put them on waster dirt bikes. They make great pursuers on waster dirt bikes, for example. So there's a variety of things you can do with these guys to fulfill pretty much any role that you want to. And plus, if you decide to make it into a delegation gang, you can also take better weapons equipment from the delegation lists as well. So that's another cool thing about Outcast Hive Scum as well. Now, unfortunately, you cannot start your campaign with an Outcast specialist, so that part is kind of sad. Almost every single gang can have a specialist except for Outcast, so that part is kind of sad, but that's the kind of the trade-off. Yes, you can't get those specialists, but right at the start. But you have so many guys you can choose from, and plus your delegations can fulfill those roles anyways, so it's not that big of an issue. So that makes up your guys' Outcast Hive Scum. Alright, so when it comes to the roster on this one, I call it the Burning Bright House Ko'Iron Outcast gang at 1,400 credits. First of all, you have your Prime Materis. She's going to cost you 300 credits. She's going to have a Wyrd Archetype with light Carapace armor, mastercrafted bolt pistol, shock stave, refractor field. She has the Devotional Frenzy skill, Overseer, as well as the Biomancy discipline, Stop Bleeding. After that, you'll have two Outcast champions. Outcast champion number 1 is going to cost you 220 credits. This fighter's got the Gunslinger archetype with mesh armor. They're also equipped with the Flamer as well as a stub gun for backup, and they have the fast shot ability so that way they can fire this Flamer twice. Then you have Outcast champion number 2 is going to cost you 140 credits. This fighter's got the Gunslinger archetype. They also got mesh armor as well as a grenade launcher with frag and crack grenades as well as fast shot, so that way they can fire that grenade launcher twice in a row as well. Now it should be noted, if you use the Overseer ability from your Prime Materis on any one of these champions, they can fire their weapons up to 4 times in a single activation. Now after that, you got 2 Fraterra's bodyguards. Both could cost you 100 credits apiece. Both of them will be equipped with mesh armor, eviscerators, last pistols, as well as the Devotional Frenzy skill. After that, you will have 2 Outcast Scum number 1 and 2, and they're both equipped exactly the same at 70 credits apiece with last guns as well as chain swords. And then finally, you will have a Guild of Coin Haulers, which would cost you 400 credits. This fighter is going to have a Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler as well as a Prometheum tank with reinforced armor on this Promethean tank as well. They also have all-wheel steering, tire claws for +1 handling, as well as a nitro burner for +1 movement. They have smoke vents as well as a smoke launcher to protect you from being shot at. And that pretty much makes up the list at this part. So with the list over with, let's talk about the gang overview. Like I said before, this is going to be one of the smallest gangs in the Noble Houses Outcast list, and this is due to your delegation cost. At 500 credits, it is a pretty steep cost, but it's pretty powerful all things considered. Your fighters will have to take on multiple roles for this gang, and you do have 3 flamers in this gang, but the nice part is they have the plentiful trait because of the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler. Now your Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler is going to have +1 to its toughness on all sides, +2 to its handling characteristics, +1 to movement. It's also going to be -1 to hit against, and has the ability to launch smoke grenades to protect your fighters as well as your vehicle. At the same time, we'll be able to generate D3 times 10 credits and D6 times 10 credits at the end of each scenario if not wrecked, and all flame weapons within 3 inches of this lose their scarce trait and gain the plentiful trait instead. This is going to be mainly a defensive gang until you get more fighters as the campaign develops, and even though it's a smaller gang, you still have 2 fire teams, 1 support fire team, and 1 assault fire team. Your support fire team will consist of your Prime Materis, your Outcast Champion number 2, Outcast Scum number 1, as well as Outcast Scum number 2, and your Guild of Coin Hauler. This fire team primarily stays with the Cargo 8 Ridge Hauler, but can fight dismounted if necessary. The Prime Materis uses their Overseer skill on the Outcast Champion number 2, allowing this fighter to fire their grenade launcher up to 4 times per activation. Use frag grenades against soft targets like enemy fighters, and crack grenades against vehicles. The Outcast Scum also provides suppressive fire with their last guns and can protect the Ridge Hauler from enemy board reactions with their chain swords. I suggest purchasing hotshot last packs as well as telescopic sights for those glass guns as soon as possible to make it a little bit stronger and to actually reach out and hit your opponents at longer ranges. Now for your assault fire team, it consists of Outcast Champion number 1 as well as Fraterra's bodyguard number 1 and 2. These fighters fight dismounted or board enemy vehicles. They're also packing 3 flamers apiece, 1 at strength 4 and 2 at strength 3. Your Outcast Champion exploits their fast shot ability to clear out your enemies, firing their flamer twice, while the Fraterra's bodyguards follow through, firing their flamers on their eviscerators or finishing them off in close combat using the chain swords on their eviscerators as well. Now as the campaign progresses, I suggest you enhance this fire team by recruiting more Outcast Scum, equip with eviscerators, and let the fire burn bright and set your opponents on fire. And that's what I like to call the Burning Bright House Ko'Iron Outcast Delegation gang. So in conclusion, Noble House Delegation Outcast gangs are some of the great ways to add some more diversity to a campaign. You have a lot of powerful options with your Noble House Delegations. You can also make some pretty interesting gangs by throwing in Outcast Hive Scum as well as Outcast Champions. And now that you have the access to vehicles, you can even make more crazy combinations out there. In fact, in my opinion, adding these Delegation Outcast gangs is a great way to add a lot of diversity into an already diverse game set with all kinds of different gangs and builds, and it just adds to the diversity in the the creativity of players in order to create newer gangs that they're out there in the campaigns. So with that being said, pick your favorite noble house and head out there into the ash waste to reclaim your glory and your honor and to rise back up to the noble ranks of the noble houses. Just as always, of course, watch out for your balanced bandwagon guys, because those guys will always gripe and complain and always find something wrong with the game and try to blame you for the reasons why they can't play so well. So that being said, feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this one, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.